Okay, can we now see the amendment from Hello, is this working?
No, it's gone up.
Can I see the amendment from Wandsworth and Merton, mover? And then can we have as well at the front the amendment A2 from Loughborough?
These are both page 31 of the main booklet.
I'm Ian Graham from Wandsworth and Merton branch. I didn't realise I was going to have to propose this, although I did write the amendment. When I read the Policy Commission report, I thought I actually had two reactions. One is that there isn't much about higher education, but there isn't time to fix that. But secondly, I saw this thing about, raising the status of religious instruction in schools. And I thought this is a red line, really. For me to belong to a party that supports the brainwashing of children. Sorry, no, can't do that. So I reworded it. We discussed it in the branch, and I think the amendment pretty much speaks for itself. Thank you very much.
Amendment A2, Loughborough, please.
I actually asked the I asked the Standing Orders Commission if they would treat these three amendments separately, but I think maybe they're not sufficiently controversial, and maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe we can vote on them all together. First of all, we've already had an amendment that replaces religious education by education about religions. And that's exactly the wording that we're proposing here, to replace all reference to religious education and RE by education about religion. Because the phrase religious education has strong connotations of, quite frankly, indoctrination into a particular religion. And it's, yes, schools need to be able to teach about religion, but not instruct in a particular religion. Secondly, the policy document accepts for the time being, and I emphasize for the time being, the existence of private schools and supplementary schools. And therefore, we cannot use the phrase all schools, so under planning and governance. Therefore, we should just say all state-funded schools, because that's what the state is. That's what the state is responsible for. It's not responsible for private schools, and it's not responsible for supplementary schools. Finally, under point 19, add at the end, this study will include a re-examination of the principles of the 2004 Tomlinson report, which recommended an overarching and modular assessment system for ages 14 to 19. Now, as an education worker, I had great hopes for the Tomlinson report in 2004, but guess what? The Blair government, having commissioned the Tomlinson inquiry, which had much money, time and effort put into preparing and producing the report, what did the Blair government do? It just ignored it. It didn't say that it opposed it, it just put it in the bin. It took no notice of it whatsoever. And I think we should resurrect the principles of the Tomlinson report, and I put these through the branch, and the branch agreed with me that we should resurrect those principles, and we should mention the principles of the Tomlinson report in the motion. That's it.
Thank you. So can I see the mover of Amendment A4 from Lambeth, please?
Page 32.
You can, if there's any amenders who would like to just move their proposal formally in the spirit of saving time, they'll be very welcome to do so.
Conference, Jeremy Dewar, Lambeth Branch, teaching assistant, supporter of workers' power. We need a revolution in education. There's a counter-revolution taking place where we're going back to the 1950s, but instead of a two-tier education system, they're actually introducing a four-tier education system. The high flyers in the private schools are actually pretty much unregulated and self-selected through their £30,000 fees. Then there's the grammar schools introduced for the entrepreneurs, the scientists, the engineers, the designers and the supervisors. And then there are the academies and the state school system for the skilled and unskilled workers, and increasingly a fourth tier for the unskilled workers who are going to spend a lot of their time in and out of dead-end jobs for whom the most important value to instruct them in is discipline. We want to get rid of Eton and get rid of the grammar schools, abolish them. What an excellent slogan to take forward, abolish Eton. Positively, we want students, parents and educators in charge of the education system. We should support the trade unions fighting for a lowering of the workload for BEM and ethnic minority teachers and TAs to be progressed, and to stop the system where 2 out of 5 teachers actually give up the profession in less than 5 years. We want to support school students' unions for the restoring and the upgrading of the educational maintenance allowance. We want apprenticeships based on trade union rates of pay which lead to real jobs. On schools, we don't think that small is always beautiful. We want large schools but small classes. Let's have a 20 students per class limit. Let's have multi-teacher system where we break down the student-teacher dichotomy as we used to talk about when people read Paulo Freire. We want a broad curriculum but autonomy in how that is delivered, and that to be decided by the students. We want to abolish the faith schools. It is not true that the faith schools are led by people who've got a higher moral compass than ourselves. They preach submission and often reactionary social policies and values. It was 225 years ago that the French Revolution said separate church and state. We think we should move to that. In conclusion, education is an arena of class struggle. We want parents, educators, students and the working class mobilised for that struggle. I'm proud that in my school there are dozens of school students walking out on Wednesday, and I applaud also those educators who supported them in that. That's the way forward. Thank you.
Can I see the mover of Amendment A5, Mid Glamorgan? I believe for your attention this is...
This is not in the main booklet, it's in the Standing Orders Committee one at page 27.
Hello. Okay. Yes, I hope you heard that. It's page 27 of the Standing Orders report, and it's amendment to the main motion, and it's to be inserted at the end of the first paragraph, which talks about education as a human right. And I wish to extend, and I think the policy documents should make an in-principled and socialist statement about what we mean by education as a human right. And I think that has to be expressed in terms of it being lifelong learning. I think as socialists, we should be looking to people learning in their own interests and in the interests in society, so that they themselves develop understanding through following their interests, following their own questions and following their own desires. And this isn't just children, young people, this is everybody throughout their life. And I think this is one of the principles, in a sense, which is slightly missing in the policy document as it's currently presented. It's quite correctly aimed at a compulsory education period of time. We should adopt a policy which flows from early education, early preschool education, right through to retirement. Education is something which takes place not just in a formal setting, but in our own life, the university of life, if you like, through our own personal experience. And if we wish to have that accredited, then the system should follow that. So I think that it's about developing confidence people developing confidence in their own learning in any way they wish to do it, and the state should facilitate that, whatever time of life that is. This is what I mean by lifelong learning. It's absolutely critical that, instead of thinking of education in terms of institutions, that you go to nursery, you go to primary, you go to junior, whatever, that we start to think of education in terms of pathways. That it may be that you follow an arts and crafts pathway, that's your interest. It may be later in life you wish that to take a more practical turn. The state should facilitate that. For years I taught day release apprentices. Many of those day release apprentices I now bump into gas fitters when I used to teach them, and they're now very, very significant players internationally in the IT world. And I say, how did this happen? And they said, oh, well, I did my ONC, I did my HND, I did a top-up at university. Then they said I could do a master's, so I did a master's. And then I did a master's in information technology in the gas industry. I said, oh, fascinating. So what happened then? Oh, I did a doctorate then, and so on. And that's how it should be. That's exactly how it should be. So really, the policy should in fact be addressing lifelong learning. By addressing lifelong learning, it should be addressing further higher education and all the institutions. That's our route in. That needs to be developed.
Okay, we now have some time for floor discussion. Can I see anyone who would like to speak in this session? Sorry?